God, can you help me pinpoint why I can't say no when people ask me to do things? Or why do I do this service for you and I feel exhausted? I feel burned out. Why am I feeling overwhelmed? Why is so much on my plate? You need to stay in the lane that God has before you. And if you start thinking, oh, I want to drive in that person's lane because you're comparing and you think that's what you want to do, then you're going to burn out. How do we protect our energy levels? How do we guard our time in order to continue to keep our sanity? Our sanity is very important for us, right? So this is a conversation on guarding against burnout. If you don't know my story, I experienced severe burnout when my husband and I decided, well, as a result of me experiencing the severe burnout, decided to leave our jobs working overseas, serving the Lord back in the end of 2014. So what happened was my burnout was so severe that my brain was actually impacted, a little damaged because of the high stress that I continued to allow myself to live in and out of for way too long. So we're going to talk about that, my experience with burnout, and the reason why I like to share with other people the importance and the value of guarding your rest, guarding your time, setting up boundaries, because we cannot be an impact with other individuals and with the Lord if we are burning both ends of the candle. It's just going to be impossible to be an impact, and we're just harming ourselves as a result. What's in our heart? Why do we do what we do? Why do we allow ourselves to continue to say yes to the constant questions coming our way? If we take time to self-reflect and to look at why we do the things that we do, we can definitely pinpoint what is motivating us. And if that motivation is not pure, if that motivation has some lies upholding it, then we are going to constantly continue to say yes to things that we're not supposed to say yes to, continue to not guard our energy and our time or the rest that we do need to include into our schedule. And so going into a time of reflection, a time of sitting before the Lord and asking Him, God, can you help me pinpoint why I can't say no when people ask me to do things? Or why do I do this service for you and I feel exhausted, I feel burned out? Why am I feeling overwhelmed? Why is so much on my plate? And if we really want to hear the truth, we need to ask the Lord to show us what's going on within us, and He will. He is faithful to show us those things. He brings a gentle correction, though, in showing us what's going on within us. And then we can turn from that, and we can, instead of holding on to the lies that we might be believing or the impure motives, we can hold on to the truth of what God's Word says about who we are, how we are to follow after the Lord, how we are to serve Him, and then live a life that isn't so exhausting and a life that we dread to wake up to every single day. When we came off the field back in 2014, serving the Lord, our commitment was to be career in what we were going to do. But because I experienced burnout in a very health impacting way, where I wasn't able to form complete sentences one evening when I was talking to my husband, which is very scary, I knew as I lived out of adrenaline, because it's something that my brain was trained to do. As a result of growing up in a difficult background, having some trauma in my life, I had trained my brain that we were going to live life as if everything was a threat and I was going to be on alert all of the time. And then be in that mode within our brain that we are familiar with called the fight, flee, or the freeze part of the brain. And sometimes fawning. Fawning is the fourth response to danger. If you live out of that place in your brain for a long time, like long periods of time, months, days, years, and your brain is trained out of that part of your nervous system that is always on alert, then that can do some damage to your health, your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, and eventually your spiritual health. My recovery time was a lot longer than I expected. I really thought that I would recover like in a month, and then I would be back to myself. I would recognize myself. My energy level would be in a place that I was used to, and everything would be okay. We would all go back to normal. My husband and I would be able to go back and serve the Lord abroad. But my road to recovery took a lot longer because not only did I have burnout that impacted the way that my brain was functioning, but I also developed depression and I had panic attacks and obviously anxiety, which goes with the panic, right? And I realized, okay, this is going to be a little bit longer than I thought it would. And it took way longer than I thought it would for me to be in a place where I felt more of myself, felt more of my energy levels returning. And then I had to grapple with the PTSD of having such an intense experience with burnout and not be afraid of burning out again. Something that I'm still overcoming in my own personal life. Anytime that my schedule changes or I add something to my plate, I always want to double check before the Lord and ask Him, is this you, or is this something that is an internal motivation that I have that should not be there? Because again, I didn't want to burn out again. I didn't want to find myself in a place that was unhealthy and sick. Because I was very sick when I had experienced my burnout experience. In checking our motives of why we do what we do, there are things that we can check for. For example, when I went to serve the Lord, I had pure motives to serve Him because I do have a relationship with the Lord. I do have a love for Him. But there were times when that motivation would shift over into, if I do this for the Lord, maybe I will gain more of His affection and more of His love. And if I do this for the Lord, then, and this was very subconscious thinking, by the way, then I would secure my salvation in Him. So none of that is true. That is a works-based belief system that I was living out of, and I had no idea I was doing that. I did believe that I was saved by grace, but I still was trying to earn my way into something that I already had as a result of my choice to believe what Jesus did for me, die for my sins, and then rose again. And so instead of being free of having to work my way to be received by Him and to be loved by Him, thinking that His love for me was conditional, I just needed to rest in the unconditional love that He did offer me, and rest in the relationship that we already had, and rest in the love that He already offered me. And then I wouldn't have moved into a place of burning out because my service to Him turned into that. And because it was that way, I was saying yes to more than I should have said. And the overwhelm with what I was doing was so extreme, and everything else that we were walking through in that season, because there were health issues, there were so many different things going on, that it all piled upon one after the other. And then having an impure motive of serving the Lord with all of that didn't help. And then I had burnout. When I came back to the States, I definitely wanted to understand why I had experienced burnout. It was good to self-reflect. It was good to ask the Lord to show me my own heart, to show me my motives, to show me what was going on. And so I challenge you to do the same. I challenge you to go before the Lord and to ask Him, why is my plate so full? Why do I feel overwhelmed? Why is the candle burning at both ends within my life? And why can't I say no to this person? And why do I have to say yes to everything that is offered to me? Is the motivation fear of man? Is the motivation wanting to be liked by everybody around you, wanting to be a people pleaser? Is your motivation to gain something for yourself that isn't what God has for you to have in your life? To seek something that is not God's plan for you? Because if you are headed down a road that is not God's intent for you, doing something of your own choice, God's not bringing His favor on you in that, and He's not going to give you the grace you need to endure doing whatever it is that you're pursuing after. So checking your heart, but also making sure that what you are pursuing is what God has told you to pursue. He's the one that will equip us if He's the one that has led us to do those things. So asking the Lord, what on my plate am I a part of? Am I involved in that is not your plan for me, God? And then being okay to remove things off of your plate so that you won't burn out, so that you won't be exhausted all of the time. It is not God's plan for us to live that way, to be overwhelmed, to be burned out. There will be times where we will walk through stressful seasons. There will be emergencies that we have to deal with. There will be drama that we have to be confronted with. These are things that are a part of life. But God does not intend for us to live pumped full of adrenaline, pumped full of cortisol, which is not good for your health at all, on a day-to-day basis, month after month, year after year. We also need to allow him to retrain and rewire our thinking, because if we have allowed ourselves to train our brain that this is how we're going to live life, on alert all of the time, believing that there is a danger around every corner, and our brains are in tune to that, and so therefore we don't know how to calm down, we don't know how to rest, we don't know how to relax, then we are still going to move into burnout. So we have to allow the Lord to rewire our brain and to change the way that we think. And we do this by making a conscious choice to learn how to calm down, to learn how to put times of rest, times of play within our day, within our schedules, so that we aren't living out of that part of our nervous system that is just on high speed all of the time. We need to also live out of our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calming state of our nervous system, allowing ourselves to relax, allowing ourselves to burn a candle, allowing ourselves to read a book, allowing ourselves to go on a long walk. Those are important things, and those kind of help balance the rush in our life, to where we have some downtime, then we work really hard, then we give ourselves a reward for what we've done, and that we also make sure that we enjoy the life that we're living, enjoying nature, enjoying our families, enjoying a meal with our favorite friend or spouse. These are very, very important, and this is how God wired our brains to also be at rest and not be on the go 24/7. Boundaries are very important. There will be somebody in your life, whether it be your own spouse or your children, definitely children, or somebody in the family, or a friend, or a coworker, or a boss, that will always challenge you with your boundaries. They're going to see how far they can push with you. How much can I get this person to do such and such for me? And that's always going to be the case. And we have to learn how to respond in a way that will guard, like I said before, our energy and our time. And that is setting up boundaries. So if there are individuals in your life testing your boundaries, then learn to push back a little bit and say, I'm going to place a boundary here because we're not going to do this. And I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to let you do this. But I am going to place a boundary there. So boundaries can be verbal or they can be nonverbal. Nonverbal boundaries is going to look like this. Somebody calls you and they're yelling at you and they're screaming at you. And you don't like that. Nobody likes that, right? So the next time they call, don't answer the phone. So your behavior is telling them you don't like that they are yelling at you on a phone call. And then later down the road, if you feel like you need to have a conversation with this person and then actually verbally set that boundary, go ahead and do that. But if it's someone that you're afraid to set that verbal boundary because you know they're going to respond in a very maybe toxic way, you can set those boundaries non-verbally. You can write those boundaries down. You can think about them. You can ask the Lord, how should I set a boundary with this certain individual who is draining me, and I need to make sure that I guard my energy. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't minister to people who need our help, because anytime we minister to people, it is going to take something out of us. That is us pouring out into them, and that is an appropriate thing to do. And I would put limits on this. I would put a time limit with those individuals that need that type of ministry. Some people will pull more out of you than you are able to give. If you have those individuals in your life that pull more out of you than you are able to give, I encourage you then definitely to space out how often you do minister to them and put a time limit on it, or invite somebody else into that conversation so that you're not the only one ministering to that person. You want to show them the love of the Lord. You want to be a blessing to them, but it's just very hard. And sometimes it is hard to minister to certain individuals. This is where appropriate boundaries will be put in place so that you can guard your energy and your time. And remember that we are not other people's savior. We are not God. Even though they might look to us to fill a need that only God can fill, we have to be mindful of that if we start to sense that. And we have to remember that they have a God, and they have a Lord that can bring salvation to them and bring them what they are looking for and what they need. So in order not to enable them, putting up boundaries will help, and it will also direct them to get their needs met by God, which is the appropriate thing to do. Some people need help with that. And so we're not their savior, nor are we going to carry the burden that they are carrying. That is for them and God to carry. It is not for us to carry on ourselves, because we can't carry everybody's burdens. It is way too much. We can be there to listen to people. We can be there to comfort people. We can be there to help people. But then we have to turn around and we have to place those burdens that we are carrying at the feet of the Lord, because he is the one that is able to carry everybody's burdens in the world and not us. And so I remind myself often, I'm not their savior. I am not their Lord or their guide. And it is best for me to take the burden that they are dumping onto me because they need to be ministered to take that burden and to place it at the feet of our Lord and let him continue to minister to them and be the one that they turn to more often. So boundaries helps with those kinds of relationships within ministry, so you won't burn out and you won't continue to pour more than you can handle to pour out. We can talk a lot about boundaries. I could probably do a whole video on boundaries, but I'm going to leave it there and move on to the importance of placing within your routines and your schedule a time to rest, a time to play. So it's important to have a Sabbath day within your week to pull away from ministry, to pull away from work, to pull away from all the things, to really sit and relax and enjoy yourself and rest. And how you best feel rested on that day are the activities that you should be doing. Maybe it's no activities at all. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's just going on a long walk, talking with the Lord, making a good meal, going out to a movie with your spouse, spending time with a really good friend. How you feel up and the way that you know is best how you feel up with your rest is what you should be doing. So if you are saying, I think I need to put my Sabbath on a Sunday, and you don't rest well around large crowds of people, and you go to church on Sunday mornings, then I would say that a Sunday would not be a good day for you to actually truly Sabbath. It might have to be placed on a Saturday, or if you have the flexibility to put it in another day of the week. For me, right now, it is Fridays because I'm home alone and I've done a lot during the week. And so I use that day for myself to rest and to regroup and to really also lean in to hear the voice of the Lord, or just to kind of let my brain go blank for a few hours. But what we're doing here is we are really giving honor to our own temples that the Lord has given us, these bodies, and really allowing them to take a break and giving ourselves rest. And I have found that when I actually allow myself to rest weekly, on a weekly basis, the rest of my week goes really, really great. It's not perfect, but it goes a lot better because I have the energy to deal with those hard things that come along within the week. And I'm not running on exhaustion or burnout, or I'm just not completely tired. So rest is very, very important. And if you pour yourself out to other individuals and you don't take time to be poured into on this day of rest, or by the Lord, or by other things, or by other individuals, then you're going to eventually pour out on empty, and you're going to sputter, and your car is just going to stall, and you're no good for anybody. So definitely make sure that you include rest into your week. And if you need extra sleep, because sleep is a part of rest. That's where a lot of things happen in the brain when you sleep. That's like, there's scientific studies about it. It's amazing. Sleep is so important. So I need more sleep than my husband. He doesn't need as much sleep at night as I do. He does get good sleep when he does sleep. He sleeps about 6 to 7 hours per night. I need like 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night. And when I work hard. When I sit down to do a video or put together content or write, I just like pour out so much energy in that block that I have set apart, that when I go to bed at night, I just need a little bit extra sleep to recover well. And I also run a lot. I definitely need my body time to recover too. When I get good sleep throughout the week, I do well and work hard with everything that I set my heart and mind to do. So make sure you include good rest, good sleep, make sure you Sabbath once a week, and make sure that you schedule play. You need to make sure that you are having fun in your schedule. This could be one thing a day that you look forward to. It could be that show that you're watching on TV at night with your family. It could be having that meal with your best friend once a month. It could be traveling, but you're setting something for your heart and your mind to look forward to. It doesn't have to be expensive. It can be creative. It could be fun. Well, it has to be fun, right? But you want to look forward to something, because we can't just live life and work and come home and work and come home. It will get boring, and boring can also lead to burnout. We need to make sure that we are having fun and that we are making time to play. This is a life that we should also enjoy as we work and serve the Lord. Another thing that has helped me tremendously is that when I do put my schedule together and my routines, that I make sure that one, I schedule around my own personal energy levels. There are parts of the day where I have more energy and parts of the day where my energy dips, so on and so forth. The same for you as well. And so when I schedule my day, I think about those things. Okay, where do I have the most energy in the day? And if I'm going to have a really hard run the day before, the next day is going to be a little bit lighter work so that I can, rest my body. I'm not going to go crazy and clean the house the following day. So I kind of space out in my schedule based on the energy level that I'm going to need for each thing that I'm going to do. And it takes a little bit more of a thinking process in this when you schedule things out. But what you'll find is if you really think, okay, am I going to have the energy to do this, followed by this, followed by this, followed by that, and they're all intense things to do, then that might not be a good thing to schedule out in that way. Maybe you can do a hard project one day, and then the next day you're not going to do such hard projects. You're going to just go through your emails or organize this or do things that don't require so much brain energy. Don't overschedule yourself either. Don't think that you can do all the things. Make sure that you put in what my husband calls margin into your schedule. That is something that has helped me tremendously. Margin in my schedule. Okay, what does that look like for me? For me, that looks like making sure that I kind of put little time gaps in between different activities that I've planned for. So I'm editing a video, then I give myself 15 minutes of rest, and then I turn around and write a blog post. So if I put them back to back to back to back, that can also be a little exhausting for my brain. I'm not taking steps back in the day to kind of give myself a rest and re-energize and then stepping back into the workflow. So those kinds of things you want to be mindful of. Other margins that you can put into your schedule, having a flexible day. I have a day of errands where I do grocery shopping and I go and pick up this and I go and pick up that. And I do that on purpose in case something happens in the week that I wasn't planning on it happening, and I can rearrange my schedule and put it on that errand day and not lose a day of work in the week, because life happens. Things come up unexpectedly. And so allowing yourself some of that fluidity into your schedule will help you not be, so strung out and so worked up when things don't go your way. And knowing my personality and knowing how I like things to be organized and scheduled well and planned well, I have to work with myself when things don't go perfectly. And I have to tell myself, it's okay. We have tomorrow. We have another day. And God is still good, and he's still on his throne, and it's not the end of the world. So my little pity party in the day that I might have because things aren't going my way, I need to compare that against what's really important in life. I have my health. I have my family. I have a roof over my head. I can't say that word. A roof over my head. Things are going well. Like, I have so much to be grateful and thankful for, and not to be dragged into something that doesn't really matter, and it should not be annoying, and it should not upset me. Identify it and then move on, but don't let it drag you down, and think of a way that you can overcome the obstacle that comes into your day. And and then the next time you get interrupted, it's not as much of a dramatic thing as you think it might be. And as you put together routines in your week and in your day, if that is something that you like to do, make sure those routines are also flexible and also fluid and also work well with your family. So don't be so rigid that you're like, I have to do this, this, and this, and nobody can interrupt me, even though I do have some things that I don't want to be interrupted on, like when I spend time with the Lord. And, That's very important to me. But I also like to think about, how does this routine that I've developed and put together impact my husband who's home at that time, and make sure that it works well with our relationship and not be so rigid about it. And sometimes we see other people do certain things online and we're like, I want to do that, but it doesn't work. We have different lifestyles. We have different people in our lives, and we're different people altogether. So you have to allow your routines, your schedules, how you choose your rest, how you choose your play, to adapt to how your life is and how it works best for you, as well as your energy levels that I talked about earlier. Another thing that will help you not burn out is not to compare yourself with the lifestyle of other individuals around you or online. You need to stay in the lane that God has before you. And if you start thinking, oh, I want to drive in that person's lane because you're comparing and you think that's what you want to do. Like I said earlier, if you're doing something that God has not told you to do and you're just doing it to be like other people and to compete with other people, then you're going to burn out. You need to stay in your lane. You need to do what the Lord has told you to do, because He's going to equip you in that, and He's going to help you in that and strengthen you and give you grace for that. But if you're comparing yourself to other people's lives, the Lord can see your heart and He can see your motives. And we talked about motives earlier, right? And He's not going to honor that. He's not going to honor you trying to compete with other individuals by doing such and such and being like them. Be yourself. Be who God has made you to be. If you don't have as much energy as the next person because maybe you are a different generation, or you have children, or you also want to give to this, or you have a full-time job, then comparing yourself to somebody else who has a whole different lifestyle and all different priorities is not fair to you. You're not being who you are. You're being somebody else, and that also will lead to burnout. So be yourself. Do what God has placed before you to do. If it's to be a parent and that season is all that you can give to is raising up your child, then do that with a full heart, with your best self, by taking care of yourself as you take care of a little one. Don't try to do all of the things all of the time. I still try to do that, and I don't have children. I have to tell myself I can't do all of the things all of the time. I can't say yes to everything. It goes back to searching your heart. What's in my heart? Do I want to please everybody? Do I want to I don't know. Then realize what's priority in my life. Is it my family? Is it my career? Is it the Lord? Right? So prioritize correctly. Allow things on your plate that the Lord is inviting you to put on your plate. Learn to set boundaries. Learn to say no. Be okay to make people unhappy. If you want to be healthy, you have to be okay upsetting people, especially people in your family. And I'm going to say that again. You have to be okay upsetting people, and mostly people within your family. Family puts expectations on other family, and those expectations are sometimes, or a lot of times, pretty unfair, and they are also not healthy. So you need to know your own personal limits, and you need to do what the Lord has told you to do and set before you to do. And so when that family member comes in and says, no, I want you to do such and such, you can say, I'm sorry, I have placed a priority of doing what God has put on my plate to do first, and I don't have enough energy or time to add anything else to my plate. And then be strong in that and not allow other people to sway you and to make you pull away from the lane that God has you in. People burn out because they don't know how to say no. They don't know how to set boundaries. They're people pleasers, and they are afraid to hurt other people or to make other people upset or angry. And we need to be okay if people get angry with us and tell ourselves that is not my issue. That is the other person's issue. If they are upset with us, that's their issue, and they have to deal with that. We only have one God that we have to listen to and serve, and other individuals in our lives do not take that seat that belongs to our God. When you want to guard your time and you want to guard your energy and your sanity as a result, and not fall into burnout and then have mental health issues or physical issues in your body, place God as God in your life and do what He says for you to do, and don't allow anybody else to distract you, pull you away, or add to your plate, and be okay to say no. Be okay to say no. Definitely make sure that you spend time with people who fill your cup, who fill you up. There are going to be plenty of people who drain you and take away a lot of energy from you. So make sure that you have people surrounding you that are supporting you, that are bringing life back into you. I think there are also activities that we can do that help us move into that calming part of our nervous system. That is something that's very important. That is how you stay kind of calm and relaxed, and you're not allowing the stress of the day to overwhelm you and to dictate the rest of your day or the rest of your week. So if you have a stressful thing come into your life, choose some activities that help you unwind, that help you de-stress, that help you realign with the heart of the Lord, whether it be immediately after that stressful event or it be something that you do at the end of the day. Make time to de-stress from the busy day. If we could insert into our day small little nuggets of activities that help us not feel so overwhelmed and not feel so much stress, it will help us overall. For me, it's okay, I'm going to cook dinner, so I'm going to play nice, relaxing music, or I'm going to burn a candle as I read in bed and I go to bed a little bit earlier to come off of my day. Or I go for a walk and I talk to the Lord, or sit on my deck and just sit still and listen to the birds. So small little activities that help you de-stress will help you overall in the week, so that when you get to your Sabbath day, you're not just so fried that you can't really enjoy your Sabbath rest. And so maybe make a list of those things that help you unwind, that help you de-stress. And again, this doesn't mean we won't have stress in our lives, but we need to learn how to ebb and flow with stress. We will have stress, and then we will calm down, and then we will work hard, and then we will rest again. It kind of is like this, right? An ebb and flow, like work really hard and then rest really well, and then have fun, and then have good friends, and then pour yourself out, and then allow yourself to be poured into. You want to be living a life that can be sustained, that your energy level is sustained, that your strength is sustained, that you are still depending on the Lord for help and asking Him for grace and mercy to do all the things He's asked you to do. But He wants us to live well and fully in Him, to live in a way where we love what He places before us to do and we don't dread it because we're overwhelmed or because we are burned out. Allow yourself to be a person that can rest and that can rest well. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.